the Samsung Galaxy S10 has been out for 3 months. And I'm not lying when I say this is the best experience I've had with Android ever. This phone is just really good, and it actually kept me on the Android platform for 2 months. I switched over from my iPhone for the first time ever into the S10, and I have been using the S10 as my main phone for 2 months. And it's been the longest I've ever been able to use an Android phone as my main phone. In fact, I never even switched. I always had Androids as my secondary phone, so it was a really big step for me to take, and the results were impressive. But also because of this, it gave me a really good perspective on the phone. And as I always say, no phone is perfect. There's always going to be flaws. There's always going to be something that could have been better, and this phone is just no different from that. The pros and the cons, usually I separate. I make the what I like, what I hate, like 2 different videos about it. But today, I'm going to keep it simple. I'm going to make one video. I'm going to go through the pros first, the cons after that, and I'm just going to give you a quick summary of my entire experience with the S10. So, without wasting too much time, let's get into the pros. And number one has to be the design. The design, the color, everything on this phone is excellent. The color finishes this year, excellent choices. I love them all. They look really good. The Prism White is definitely my favorite by far, and I am glad I got this finish. This is one of the few phones where I am not regretting the color purchase at all. I find myself till date, sometimes just looking at it when, and just moving it through different lights and angles to get like a true appreciation of what this finish is. One of the best colors for sure, and the design definitely has been nailed this year. Number 2 has to be that triple camera setup. So the 3 cameras, we have the main lens, which does actually support dual aperture. There's an actual shutter in the camera that comes into play when you want to take photos in low light mode, and it'll let less light in, and it just works a lot nicer. You get really good photos, and you also have a telephoto lens as usual. But this year, the new one we got was the wide angle lens. And the cool thing this year, again, was that even the S10, S10 Plus both have the same camera setup. Last year, the S9 only had the single camera. It did not incorporate the dual camera. This year, that's all gone. The S10 and S10 Plus are the same when it comes to the camera hardware, which is something I was really, really hoping would happen because I wanted the smaller size, and I'm just so happy that the camera stayed the same between the two. Number 3, we have to talk about the display. How can you talk about a Samsung phone and not talk about the display, right? The display is amazing. The brightness is unreal. I have not seen another phone yet that gets as bright as this one in daylight. I mean, there's no trouble. I can be in direct sunlight wearing my sunglasses, which are polarized, and still look onto the screen, and everything is crystal clear. And it's like nothing is affecting it, which is unlike any other phone I've ever used. Any other phone, generally what happens is they're kind of dim, and then I have to either take off my sunglasses or, just shade the screen a little bit to see the information on it, even on full brightness sometimes. But with this phone, the screen gets so bright, none of that is a concern. Number 5, surprisingly, I didn't think I would be mentioning this as a pro, is the battery life. So a lot of you might know that I had issues with the S10 when it initially came out. Luckily, it just turned out that was a fluke. It was a manufacturer defect, and once I got the phone replaced, everything was great. So do check that video out if you haven't already. I'll have it in the link up here. Getting back to the battery life, that is something that is excellent on this phone. I did not ever feel the need that the battery was too small, unlike the S8 and S9. The S10 battery lasted me almost every day on just a single charge, which is very rare for me. A lot of iPhones don't make it for me. The only iPhones that make it on a single charge for me were the XR and the XS Max, and it is so great to have I'm not going to say it's a small phone, but definitely a more comfortable sized phone that has all-day battery, because the issue now is all these bigger phones are the ones that last all day because of the larger batteries in them, and I'm just so happy to finally have found a position where I get a comfortable size but a great battery life, and that's just been a very positive experience. Number 6, reverse wireless charging. So I've been using the Samsung Galaxy Buds, and with the Galaxy Buds, or with any kind of phone or device that supports wireless charging, you can use reverse wireless charging on this phone to charge up those devices, and that's super cool and comes in clutch. Not for charging other phones, as a lot of people have demonstrated or used as like kind of a joke. The real use comes in when you try to charge up something like earphones. So the Samsung Galaxy Buds, which I have right here, what happens is, I use these quite regularly, but sometimes I just don't pay attention to where the charge is at, and I see that I'm running out and I'm kind of getting nervous. I'm going out all day. I need the charge. It's not that big of a deal because since these have wireless charging in the case itself, all I have to do is put them on the back of my phone and boom, they're charging. And in, a decent amount of these Buds do charge up pretty fast. So with everything else, it takes a little bit of time, but the Buds charge up decently fast, and it's a very convenient feature to have, and it really does come in clutch. So moving on to number 7, it's the media experience. The media experience on this phone is pretty good. Some apps don't support the full screen, which I'll talk about later in the video, but when you find an app that does support your full screen view experience with 1440p enabled and the sound and everything, the media experience is just unbelievable for being a phone. I love it. I use the speakers pretty regularly. They're very good quality. No complaints there at all. So definitely, if you're buying the Galaxy S10, S10 Plus for consuming media, you're not going to be upset on most fronts. And I'll talk about that a little bit later in the video. This has to be one of the things that almost most Samsung phones now have, but the S10 and the Note series definitely do. And there's these cool little software features sprinkled throughout, which make the experience really, really cool. So things like scrolling screenshot capture, things like being able to instantly make a GIF on your phone using the little edge tool that's on the phone, and the edge panel itself, which is cool. There's edge lighting, which gives you a clue of what the notification is, and there's just so many nice little software touches. There's dark mode as well on One UI, which is excellent. Looks really good on the phone. So a lot of really nice features sprinkled throughout the software, and I think that Samsung has finally found a balance between the good and the bad. There are definitely things I would change about the UI, a few things here and there, but for the most part, it is really good. So all in all, a very good phone, very great experience I've had with it. And the phone hasn't been all good though, so the cons. And let's move on to what I don't like about the phone. What are the cons when you're buying this phone? Number 1, the punch hole display. The punch hole display, while it's interesting, I would say, it's not the way I would have gone. I would have just preferred a notch, because right now the punch hole display looks very awkward. When you have videos or anything in full screen, it looks like a cluster of dead pixels, and it really does bug me sometimes. Notches don't bug me in the same way as this punch hole does. The reality is, when you're using your phone with most apps, like social media apps, when you're using anything that covers the top status bar, it doesn't matter if you have a notch or the punch hole, it all feels the same. But when you're watching videos with the notch, yes, there's a bigger area that is missing, but the thing is, it doesn't look like there's it doesn't look like the screen just has a bunch of dead pixels. It looks a little bit more uniform, if you understand what I'm trying to say. And this is me just speaking from my experience with the S10. The S10 Plus has 2 cutouts, and the S10 5G has an even larger front camera cutout, which just looks awkward. And honestly, at that point, I would have just stuck with a notch. That would have looked a lot better. So I'm just not a fan of this punch hole design that Samsung has gone with. It's clear that they had to move to like a notch type setup, but since they were so vocal about the notch, they just couldn't do it. So it is what it is, and now we have what they call the Infinity O display. Number 2. Now this is something that's kind of a contrast to what I said earlier, and that is the camera. So the camera is actually, all in all, a pretty average experience, especially now comparing it to the Pixel 3 and the iPhone XS, XS Max. It's just, the thing is, the S10 doesn't shine anywhere in particular. It has the wide angle that neither of those have, which is cool, but the quality of the photos, it's honestly okay. I mean, if you're not comparing them side by side, you're going to think they're really good. But since I compare them side by side, since I use them all, the S10 isn't my top pick for when I'm trying to take photos. I would just use the Pixel 3 or the iPhone instead. And that's because, as I'm saying, the camera quality is good, but not impressive. It doesn't stand out in any way. And unfortunately, when you're in this competitive segment, not standing out is almost as bad as being a bad camera, which sucks because the S10, it's not a bad camera. It's just there's nothing that helps it stand out like its competition. Number 3, this is one of the most infuriating parts of that punch hole, and that is that some apps just completely leave out that entire top section of the phone. So you literally have a quarter of an inch of just black bar at the top of your screen if you're in an app like Hulu or Netflix, where they will just not at all bother. It'll act like that area just doesn't exist on the phone, and I don't like that at all. It's kind of stupid, and I know that this isn't Samsung's fault, but it is kind of their fault in the sense they should have seen this coming. They should have known that most developers for these apps, they wouldn't have bothered to go through the effort to optimize their apps for this screen in particular, since it's not as popular or common to have a punch hole up there, and they just did the easy thing. They cut it off entirely so they don't have to deal with it. Now that really sucks, because this display is so good for media consumption. Not being able to watch Netflix, Hulu on the full display, it kind of kills the experience for me, and that's something I was very upset about when I realized. And it is what it is, but hopefully the next generation of this removes the punch hole or incorporates it in a way where developers actually will put in the effort and time to make the apps work good and work with the punch hole or whatever kind of solution they come up with. Number 4, this is an odd one. When the phone gets hotter, this starts to shut down and give you the temperature warning a lot faster compared to the iPhone. Now, I only noticed this because, 1, I live in Texas where it's super hot, and 2, when you leave your phone in the car for a couple of minutes, or if you're in direct sunlight for more than a few minutes, the phone starts to heat up like crazy. And I've actually gotten the temperature warning a few times on the Samsung in the same ways that I used the iPhone, and the iPhone never gave me an issue, but the Samsung, it does have the temperature warning. And eventually, if you ignore it and keep using the phone, it'll just lock everything and close all your apps. It doesn't matter what you were doing; it'll just force close everything, and it will just leave you locked out of the phone for however long until it cools down. So that's something that I've noticed. I'm sure that it's not going to be a problem for 90% of people, but for people who are using their phone in a hot environment, that is something to keep in mind. Number 5, this is again one of those issues where the S10 Plus is a little bit more effective than the S10, and that is the power button. So the power button on the S10 is so high up that it's awkward. Even on the smaller version of the phone, the S10, I have to stretch my thumb all the way out. So if I had the S10 Plus, it would definitely not be possible from the natural position I hold the phone in. And personally, from trying the S10 in the stores and stuff, it definitely is not a comfortable position for that power button. I have no idea why they moved it so far up, since it wasn't that high up in the older phones. It was in a much more ergonomic location. It's just, I don't understand that decision, if it was supposed to mean something or if it's just the way they thought it out. But it's something that definitely annoys me. I wish they wouldn't have done that, but again, it is what it is. And obviously the Bixby button, everybody complains about it. I'll complain about it too. It can be disabled, but again, when there's an update or something, when you disable it, kind of goes away and you have to do it all over again. So at this point, I just didn't set it up and left it as is, and I just hope to myself that I don't accidentally hit that Bixby button, which again happens kind of often because of the positioning of it. It's just weird that the Bixby button, the least used button, is in the most ergonomic position, whereas the power button, the most used button, is in the least ergonomic position. It's just some weird Samsung ergonomics going on here this time around. Number 6, the in-display fingerprint scanner. So I've been pretty vocal about my distaste of these in-display fingerprint scanners. As they sit right now, they're just not better than the fingerprint scanners, that the more traditional ones, the capacitive ones. And the thing is, I understand that we have to move forward to newer technologies. There's going to be a few bumps down the road. But it's just, I still don't see the need for in-display fingerprint scanners. You can very easily implement it into your power button, into the back of the phone, somewhere else where, 1, it's faster, 2, it's a lot more just easier to find. Right now what happens is, unless you're looking down at the screen, you don't know where to put your finger. With the older fingerprint scanners, you exactly knew where it was because it was kind of cut out and there was a very clear indentation towards where fingerprint scanners lie. Now, that's no longer the case. So every time I unlock the phone, I can't do it without looking at the phone. I have to physically look down at the screen, make sure that my thumb is resting in the right place, and then it works. But you know what I have noticed as I use the phone more and more, muscle memory is helping to make sure I get the phone, I get my finger in the right place about 7 out of 10 times. But still, 3 times out of 10, it's not going to work, and I have to look down at the screen to see where I went wrong. The fingerprint scanner is definitely better than the OnePlus 7 Pro and the OnePlus 6T and all the in-display from OnePlus, but it's not as good as just the old traditional ones. But this is a lot more secure, by the way. So it is an infrared sensor instead of a optical sensor. I'm not going to get into the differences between those two right now, but trust me, the infrared one, the one in the S10, is a lot more secure. Number 7, this is one of the worst parts of the entire software for me, and that has to be the way notifications are handled. So I know a lot of people hate iPhones for the way notifications are handled, but honestly, I think Android does a way worse job at notifications. Yeah, sure, you get everything at the top and they stay there, but it's very disorganized. It's very difficult to read through them, try to understand them, and it's annoying, and you just don't have a lot of control over it. So in the past, I've made claims like this without checking if there's alternatives or something, but this time around, I Googled everything. I tried to see if there was any solution online. I messed around with all the settings possible to see what notifications were doing, and nothing worked. What I found was that what my issue was, by the way, I'm so sorry I was skipping over that. My issue is that notifications don't come in. I don't see them in the time they came in. So like, I want the newest ones on top, and I want the oldest ones to keep going down to the bottom. Now, iPhones have been doing this forever, and that's how it works on iPhone. However, on Android phones, what's happening is they use a priority system, so whatever apps are prioritized, they get sent up to the top, and they stay at the top. And then the apps that are not higher priority, they get sent to the bottom. It doesn't matter when the notification came in. So say I get a notification. I open my phone. At any time you see an Android phone, the notifications are just cluttered as crap because you get so many notifications from so many different apps. It's crazy. It's so hard to control. So what happens is, if I'm trying to find the one I actually want, it's difficult. What I have to do is I have to kind of open up the info of every single notification to see the time they came in at, and whatever's closest to the time that it is right now, that's my newest one. And that's the biggest annoyance. Now, the two solutions to this are, one, you prioritize each and every app. So every app you download, go in, prioritize which ones you want to see at the top. But again, this doesn't fix my issue of wanting the notifications to be chronological. I want them to be sorted by what's newest first, so I can pay attention to that. Number 2, you can disable notifications on multiple apps. You can control the number of notifications that come in. But again, this is a lot of work to do and put in to do something that's very basic. And another thing that really does bug me is a lot of notifications. Even if you open the app, go in the app and go open the message or notification, whatever the notification was for, it still stays in your notification bar. You have to manually get rid of it. Makes no sense to me. Why do you, I mean, is it that hard really to do that? It's just something that I don't understand. Why not at least have the option that if I open up an app, no longer, you don't have to show me the notification in the notification bar. You can get rid of it since I opened the app. That's how it works on iPhone. For most apps, if you open up the app and you go back out, the notification is cleared. But you just can't do that on the Android side, and that's been infuriating because my notifications just get lost all the time. I'm going to try to throw in a few screenshots to explain to you guys where, just look at the time. I got an alert, I open my phone, scroll down this notification thing, nothing makes sense. I have to go through, and then the one that's closest to my time, then I realize, oh, this is the one that probably gave me the notification, and it's just crazy. I really wish that I understand a lot of people prefer that, but come on, at least a chronological order. Give an option and let me sort by that so I can at least, get to them in the way I want to. Moving on, number 8. The software updates on this phone are very worrisome to me. So when I got the phone in March, it had the March 1 security update. Makes sense, right? Now, I got the phone, I think, third week of March. In April, nothing. No updates. In May, I think halfway through May, I got my first security update. And again, that was for April. So in like May 15th or something, I got an update finally, but that was for the April 1 security patch. Now, today, as I'm filming this, it's June 26th. And as of today, the phone is still on the May 1 security update. 4 days from now, it's going to be July. And A brand new phone, this phone is only 3 months old, it came out in March, is already lagging behind desperately on security updates, and this is completely the fault of Samsung, because my Pixel phones have gotten it, my my Essential phone has gotten the security updates, the OnePlus, even though that's not as fast, but it still has a newer security update than this, and it's infuriating to me because Samsung is a huge company. They have way more resources than anyone else, any other OEM, and they still cannot push out a damn security update for their newest phone, the newest flagship phone. It's not like a budget phone or something. This is their flagship. This is the best of the best they have to offer, and they still can't push out a monthly security update. It's just sad, and I think that if you are very security and software update conscious, this is not the phone to be looking at. You're definitely going to be lagging behind in that sense, and there's not much I can do besides complain about this, to be honest. This is something that only Samsung can fix, and I hope they do in the future. So moving on, number 9, the final one, and that is some One UI elements make no sense to me, because when you open them, I'm going to show you a quick example of this. So say I open my phone, and when I open phone, I'm just going to block who I called and stuff. So you see this entire area, phone. Why? I mean, why can't you just have information? What I don't understand is, why do you have phone like on literally half the page? You don't have to have that. I'm going to put a screenshot up here. You don't have to have your phone or your messages saying, taking up half the page. Why isn't it just there at the top corner? Now, the second you start scrolling, that goes away and out into the corner, but it still doesn't make sense to me why they did this. It's just, I'm saying it, they baffle me sometimes with the way they handle things. And, that's it. That's my last gripe. And that one's just a little nitpicky, but something that I definitely noticed and something that definitely bugged me. So that's it for this one, guys. So that was the pros and cons of the Samsung Galaxy S10. After using the phone for 2 months, I switched to the OnePlus 7 Pro, and I can tell you that I missed this phone so much. I missed the Galaxy S10. For all its shortcomings, it still is an excellent phone. It does so much right. It's so great to use. The size is perfect. It's just a really good experience all around, and if you're looking to buy the S10, just keep in mind the cons that I told you, but it's a great deal. It's a great buy. And if you can find it on sale, that's just icing on the cake there for you. I've enjoyed this phone thoroughly, and I do plan on using it. As you know, right now we're going to be in a little bit of a dry spell of Android phones. We're not going to have anything for the next couple of months, no big releases. So it's going to be cool to just finally get settled into a phone and use it for a little bit longer. So that wraps it up with this one, guys. If you have any questions about the Galaxy S10, please feel free to ask down in the comments below. If you haven't already, I do recommend you check out my social media links. I have all of them down in the description below. I'm updating on Instagram and Twitter very regularly, and I would really appreciate it if you could follow me over there as well. Thank you so much for watching, guys. I'll catch you in the next one.